Hello and welcome to the Thursday, March 6, 2025 edition of the SANS Internet Storm Center's Stormcast. My name is Johannes Ulrich and I'm recording from Baltimore, Maryland. Guy has done an amazing job with our DShield Honeypot, allowing you to run a Kibana interface, all the data being stored in Elasticsearch, and with that, making the data that your Honeypot collects much more approachable. Now, there is sadly always a lot of data. Well, sadly or not so sad, depending on how you look at it. But Guy today wrote a diary walking you a little bit through how to better get a handle at the data and finding events of interest to better understand what attackers are up to with your honeypot and, well, learn from it. Interesting blog post. And yes, if you do want to run the DShield honeypot, please do so. We always like your data. And with the ELK interface, well, it also becomes much more interesting for you to actually look at the data. You may need a little bit more powerful system than just sort of your basic Raspberry Pi in order to run all of this. The Google Bug Hunter team today released a lot of details, including working exploit code for a vulnerability that AMD patched a month ago. This vulnerability allows you to essentially update the microcode in your CPU. The microcode is routinely updated, and it's often delivered with operating system updates like Microsoft Linux updates and such include new microcode for your CPU. But this update is supposed to be cryptographically signed. The problem with AMD's implementation of this update procedure was that the hash function that they use, well, wasn't really as secure as it should be for this application. The patch a month ago did update it with a new proprietary hash function that appears to at least solve this problem. And with that now, Google did release the details about this vulnerability, which would essentially allow you to jailbreak your CPU. Remember, sort of the little demo that was released a month ago did essentially tell the CPU to always produce the same random number if you're using the CPU's random number generator. This is just sort of a little proof of concept demo, but with the additional code released today and such, well, it's really up to the attacker's creativity what they would like your CPU to do. So definitely make sure that you are patching this issue. It's not necessarily something that's easy to patch, but the new details released today may make it easier also to check if your CPU has been updated. And then we have a critical security update for the popular Linux editor Vim, or maybe not so popular if you never figured out how to exit Vim. This update fixes a recently added feature to Vim. It's sort of one of those things where, well, you always think of Vim as a relatively straightforward, simple editor, but it does have a ton of features. One of the features is to actually easily open and then edit files that are inside a tar file. The problem here is that Vim, as it's opening these files from the tar archive, is not properly verifying and validating the file names in the tar archive, and that can then lead to code execution. So you still would need to trick a Linux user to open a file that you're providing them, but then again, they may consider Vim safe, which of course it is not. That's why we have this update to Vim, and the sort of appearance of Vim being like simple and safe may make it actually easier to trick an administrator to open like a file in Vim than it is to open a file like in Word or Acrobat Reader. And then Guidepoint Security ran into a little bit weird and interesting twist on ransomware. Turns out there is a group that claims to be Lian ransomware group or associated with it, that actually sends regular postal mail to company executives, threatening them with leaking data that they stole if they're not paying up a ransom. Apparently, these are completely fake, these letters. So the attacker did not steal any data from you. They just hope, well, to actually still get money. And I think one of the ideas here is by directly addressing these letters to executive who may not necessarily see a lot of the sort of news about this ransomware group. They may bypass some of the more technical people in the company that would spot something like this as fake. At least as that my take on it. No idea how successful this campaign is. And again, the letters are probably not related to the actual Pyongyang ransomware group. They're just some copycats that attempt sort of a new twist on this scare. In the past, sadly, these fake ransomware notes have been somewhat successful. I remember from a few years ago where 30% of the recipients of emails and such claiming to come from ransomware groups have actually paid up. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for listening. And as usual, please subscribe. We are also available via Alexa and on various other podcast platforms. YouTube also, if you're enjoying a video version of this podcast. Thanks and talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.